RVing is about to look completely different, and it all started with one rig. A brand new RV just arrived, and the reaction has been insane. People aren't just impressed, they're shocked. It stays off-grid longer, uses almost no power, and has an interior so flexible it makes traditional floor plans feel ancient. And that's why the entire industry is scrambling. Prices are shifting, older rigs are losing ground, dealers are trying to pretend nothing's happening. But buyers have already moved on. This isn't a trend, it's a turning point, the kind of breakthrough that separates before and after in the RV world. So, before the market reacts even harder, let's break down what makes this rig such a game changer. Prices drop fast. Prices did not start slipping quietly. They fell hard enough that even longtime dealers admitted something was off. Units that held steady value just 1 year earlier were suddenly being discounted by $20,000 to $40,000, and not as promotional bait, but as a last attempt to stop inventory from piling up. The pressure behind the scenes was worse. Floor plan loans were stacking interest every month, eating into margins until the only option left was to cut prices before the bank stepped in. Auction sheets confirmed the trend. Quarter after quarter, rigs that once sold at reliable numbers were now clearing for less than expected, proving the decline was not temporary but structural. Demand was not matching supply, and the timing could not have been worse. Shipments that were ordered during stronger seasons kept arriving, though walk-in traffic was thinning out. Dealers tried holding firm on pricing at first, but the market was sliding beneath them. Listings stayed online longer, test drives dropped, and trade-ins became harder to move. None of this started with bad luck. It began with a new RV design that shifted buyer expectations overnight, pulling attention away from older units and pushing it into decline. The change in demand had a source that dealers were not ready to face. A new RV disrupts the lot. Dealers were not prepared for a model that stepped outside the usual template. The new RV arrived with a power system built for long stretches away from hookups, a layout that shifted without tools, and electrical components designed to run lower draw than most rigs in its class. Side by side on a lot, the difference was obvious. The next-gen unit promised longer stays, quieter operation, and fewer moving parts that needed regular service. That comparison alone was enough to slow interest in older models from 2024 and 2025. Many of those units had only just arrived, yet they were sitting longer than expected, even during seasons when turnover should have been strong. Dealers tried shifting lot placement, yet customers walked past traditional layouts in favor of anything that cut power use and simplified setup. Rows of recent models now drew little interest once the new design arrived. The shift was not driven by marketing, but by plain comparison. Units treated as dependable purchases just 1 year earlier were now seen as stopgaps. This was the point when the market started sliding faster than forecasts, because older inventory still did not match what the new platform offered today. The next pressure point hit the older rigs, where it hurt most, inside their electrical systems. If this already lines up with what you've been seeing out there, go ahead and like the video so it reaches more people. Subscribe if you want the next update as soon as it breaks, and let me know what you've noticed happening around your area. Power systems rewrite value. Electrical systems became the dividing line between what held value and what slipped fast. The new RV relied on a solar and battery setup that could power essentials without a generator, reducing noise, fuel use, and maintenance. Older rigs that depended on traditional generators suddenly looked expensive to operate and harder to keep running during long stays. Auction data showed units with generator-heavy configurations clearing at lower numbers as the season progressed. The pattern was consistent. Buyers compared daily operating costs and chose the platform that saved money over time. That shift placed pressure on rigs built before the new electrical architecture, because the gap between the two systems made those units seem outdated sooner than anyone expected. The 2026 grounding monitor interrupter rule placed pressure on older electrical systems. New platforms passed grounding checks easily, while older rigs risked power loss at campgrounds with aging wiring. That concern showed in resale numbers, because no one wanted a unit that might shut down mid-trip. As inspection notes circulated, depreciation rose for rigs built before the standard. The decline was no longer about age, but about trust in the power system. The next issue came from inside, where layout gaps widened. What happened inside the new model changed expectations even more quickly. Flexible interiors changed demand. Inside the new R-Vee, the layout shifted the conversation just as much as the electrical system. The interior could be reconfigured without major tools, letting owners change the space to fit work, sleep, or storage needs. This flexibility appealed to anyone planning longer trips or wanting a rig that adapted instead of locking them into a fixed design. Older models, built around rigid floor plans, felt limited beside a setup that moved so easily from one purpose to another. Dealers noticed interest cooling on traditional layouts once shoppers tried the adjustable sections. That reaction showed up quickly in inquiries and walkthroughs, confirming that interior design was becoming a deciding factor rather than a secondary feature. Used units followed the same trend when listings showed older, fixed layouts. Buyers compared platforms and questioned whether a rigid interior would meet needs. The effect spread through resale groups as comments pointed out limitations that had not mattered before the new model appeared. As more shoppers saw the adjustable layout, the gap widened across price ranges. Traditional rigs still sold, but only when priced below expectations. This shift marked the moment the downturn changed pace, because interior flexibility pushed the decline from steady to urgent. What followed next would accelerate the market drop across the rest of the industry. Auction numbers tell the truth. The first real sign of trouble showed up in the numbers that dealers hoped no one would notice. Auction listings were clearing far below expectations, with units that once held solid value dropping from $129,000 down to $93,000 without hesitation. These were not distressed models or rough condition trades. Many were late-year RV units with clean service records and features that used to hold pricing steady. Yet, the bids kept landing low and staying low. Screenshots passed around quietly between sales managers confirmed the pattern. Quarter after quarter, the floor kept sinking. Dealer memos marked as aged inventory showed growing lists of units approaching the point where floor plan interest would outweigh any potential profit. Each month added cost, and each price cut was an attempt to stop the financial bleeding. That pressure pushed dealers to move rigs faster, even if it meant slicing deeper than planned. At the same time, lenders tightened their oversight, forcing weekly updates instead of monthly ones. All of this showed the same message. The market was correcting, and it was correcting fast. But the pressure did not stop with dealers trying to clear the books. Manufacturers added another layer of strain. What happened inside the factories took the situation from difficult to unavoidable. Factories shift away from old models, while dealers were fighting to offload old stock. Factories made a quiet shift that changed everything. Production schedules were adjusted behind the scenes as brands reduced output of older layouts and reallocated resources toward the next generation platform. Fewer traditional floor plans rolled off the line, and when they did, they were produced in lower quantities than the dealers expected when they placed their original orders. This meant older shipments kept arriving at full invoice cost, even though the new platform was quickly becoming the primary focus. That mismatch left dealers holding too much of what shoppers no longer wanted. Manufacturers also made updates to their sales materials to highlight low-draw electrical systems, upgraded battery capacity, and flexible interiors. These additions made older rigs look dated overnight. Dealers who had committed to larger orders months prior now faced inventory that lost ground the moment it hit the lot. Moving units below cost became a survival tactic rather than a mistake. As the season continued, inventory turnover rates dropped, and factory incentives did little to offset the losses on the ground. Buyers started to notice the contrast between old and new, and that created a shift in negotiation that dealers could not control. The next phase changed how shoppers walked onto a lot and how they negotiated once they got there. Shoppers gained negotiation power. Shoppers quickly realized they had more leverage than usual. Instead of accepting posted prices, they started walking away unless the numbers matched what they saw on the next generation platform. Listings showed rigs clearing at values not seen since 2009, and those numbers spread fast through resale groups and online marketplaces. The older pricing logic collapsed under the weight of direct comparison. If one unit offered long-term off-grid capability and flexible layouts, the traditional unit beside it needed to be priced accordingly, even if the dealer's cost was far higher. This shift forced dealers to adjust quickly or lose the customer entirely. Comparison shopping became the biggest threat to old pricing models. Buyers could see auction results in real time, track price drops week by week, and calculate the difference between the systems offered on each platform. That transparency removed the anchor that older rigs relied on. Dealers now faced negotiations where the customer held the stronger evidence. Instead of negotiating upward, many stores dropped prices preemptively to avoid losing more foot traffic. This pressure mounted throughout the season. But the next blow did not come from dealers or buyers. A new rule pushed older rigs even further into trouble. The electrical requirement arriving in 2026 brought challenges no one expected. The 2026 rule hurts older rigs. The grounding monitor interrupter requirement, set for 2026, added a new layer of uncertainty that dealers avoided discussing openly. The rule mandated that new rigs include grounding monitor interrupters, designed to protect against improper campground wiring. While this improved safety, it exposed weaknesses in older rigs that might fail the same tests. Campgrounds with aging wiring often tripped the protections, causing sudden power cuts. A new R-Vee, built with the updated system, handled the grounding checks without issue, while older units risked losing power the moment the pedestal wiring did not meet the standard. That possibility spread quickly among informed shoppers. No one wanted a rig that might shut down unexpectedly on a trip. The concern extended into the resale market, where older listings faced questions about compatibility with newer electrical standards. Prices reflected the uncertainty, with units built before the requirement dropping faster than anticipated. Dealers could discount, but they could not remove the risk tied to older systems. Financially, this introduced hesitation that did not exist before. As more people learned the rule's impact, the gap between new and old rigs widened. The biggest impact landed not on dealers or factories, but on the people who already owned older equipment and now faced decisions with real financial weight. Older rigs lose value faster. The next stage of the downturn showed up in resale numbers that fell faster than anyone predicted. Older rigs began losing 10 to 30% more value than the industry's year-ahead forecasts. The shift was sharp enough that some listings looked out of place compared to guides that were updated only months earlier. Units built in 2022, which once held close to their book prices, were now selling $10,000 to $20,000 under valuation. These were not distressed sales, but predictable results of a market that had divided into two categories: rigs built before the new standards and rigs built after them. Tech changes create depreciation cliffs, not slow slopes. When a platform introduces systems that reduce day-to-day cost and improve reliability, the previous generation becomes less attractive quickly. That is what happened as the new R-Vee made older electrical setups seem expensive to operate. The insurance side followed. Valuation models began adjusting downward, creating gaps between what owners expected and what insurers were willing to approve. Those gaps matter because they determine payout potential in the event of a total loss. As the discrepancies grew, the real cost of owning an older rig became clearer, and more pressure shifted to maintenance. What happened in repair shops made the shift even more visible. If you want the next round of numbers and factory signals the moment they surface, make sure you're subscribed. The trends are moving faster than most realize, and staying ahead of them is the only way to avoid getting caught by the next shift. Repairs moved toward solar and battery. Repair patterns changed as quickly as prices. Shops that once handled steady generator work saw fewer requests as new R-Vee platforms relied on solar and battery systems rather than fuel-driven power. Electrical diagnostics replaced many mechanical fixes, requiring different tools, different training, and more precise troubleshooting. Technicians with solar experience saw their workload grow, while those focused on older generator systems faced fewer work orders by mid-season. This change reshaped repair budgets. Maintaining an older generator-heavy rig became more expensive, while the new systems spread costs differently, emphasizing battery health and inverter performance. Parts availability shifted sharply. Components for modern electrical systems moved quickly through distribution, while older parts faced back orders as stock thinned. That imbalance meant longer downtime for rigs tied to aging platforms. Maintenance budgets had to adjust, with delays and higher replacement costs becoming common. Service centers trained for new systems gained ground. This growing divide affected brand stability as manufacturers aligned with modern designs pulled ahead and others struggled to keep pace. The industry reshuffle revealed which names were gaining ground and which were stalling. Tech-ready brands pull ahead. Industry data showed a widening split between brands that adapted early and those that held onto older layouts for too long. Production delays appeared in internal schedules as some factories scaled back lines that were not compatible with the new platform. Canceled orders increased, and workforce reductions followed in plants tied to legacy designs. These signals pointed to financial strain even before public reports caught up. Meanwhile, brands with tech-ready frameworks gained allocation priority because their models matched the features buyers wanted most. Dealers shifted focus to maintain turnover, reinforcing the divide between forward-focused lines and outdated ones. Legacy models lost dealer support because stores could not justify stocking units needing deep discounts, with parts and technicians concentrating around higher volume platforms. Service risks grew for rigs tied to lagging manufacturers. When brands reduced production or staff, warranty coverage and parts access weakened. As this gap widened, travel options shifted, since newer rigs changed how and where trips could be planned. The shift in capability reshaped the travel map in ways older rigs could not match. New rigs change where you can go. The next generation RV created access to areas that traditional rigs struggled to handle. Off-grid capability meant fewer campground stops, fewer generator cycles, and fewer limits tied to electrical hookups. Locations that once required careful planning became realistic options thanks to solar output, efficient inverters, and battery storage that supported longer stays. Remote terrain offered a different kind of trip, where costs were reduced because nightly fees and hookup charges were no longer mandatory. Travel habits changed as more people used the extended independence of the new platform to explore areas that previously seemed impractical. Traditional rigs still covered core routes, but their limits showed. Older campground wiring caused grounding issues, fuel costs stayed high, and paid sites added up. Newer systems cut expenses and opened more destinations. Older rigs needed more planning and money. The gap widened, shaping which trips would stay practical as infrastructure evolved. The next stage would show how this division shapes the future of the entire market, the RV of 2030. The next decade will reshape what an RV looks like, and the early signs are already appearing in concept sheets and factory planning notes. By 2030, full electric drivetrains will move from experimental to common, giving rigs the ability to travel quietly without relying on traditional fuel systems. Wall-mounted modular systems will replace fixed cabinets and bulkier furniture, turning open space into adjustable sections that can be rearranged without major tools. Solar skins will help recharge battery banks during travel hours, while low-draw climate control systems will reduce energy use during hot or cold nights. These design changes will shift how trips are planned, because the new platforms will manage power in smarter, more predictable ways. Buying early raises upfront cost, but waiting too long risks the next price wave as demand grows. The trade-off is clear. Adopt newer systems now, or hold older rigs that may lose value. These features will become standard, and while upgrades tempt, advanced rigs bring challenges that are easy to overlook. Those challenges become clear once the new systems start showing their weak points. High-tech breakdowns cost more. When electrical systems fail on modern rigs, the problems rarely follow simple patterns, and that creates new challenges for anyone relying on the next-generation RV platform. Failures that once required a basic toolkit now involve circuits, sensors, and software layers that are harder to diagnose without specialized equipment. Parts availability adds another layer of risk, because many components are sourced from manufacturers tied directly to a specific platform. If a brand slows production or faces supply delays, repair parts can take weeks or longer to arrive, leaving rigs parked during prime travel periods. Diagnostic costs rise as shops invest in updated equipment to read modern control modules, and those expenses shift onto service bills when troubleshooting becomes more complex. The money impact appears quickly. Unexpected repairs disrupt travel and strain budgets more than older systems. wear, weather, and long trips can trigger issues that require specialized help. The systems are not unreliable, but the stakes shift, and avoiding major problems begins before buying. Preparation becomes the strongest tool as the market keeps shifting. How to protect your money. Protecting money during a shifting market means paying attention to details that often get overlooked when listings appear attractive at first glance. The first step is checking how long a rig has been sitting, because extended time on a lot usually signals a pricing gap that can be negotiated. Depreciation rates matter as well. Comparing current auction numbers to book values shows how fast certain platforms are dropping. And that information helps prevent overpaying during a period of rapid adjustment. A rig built before recent electrical standards may require deeper discounts to offset long-term concerns tied to compatibility and maintenance. Timing matters. End-of-month negotiations often favor the shopper because dealers face floor plan pressure. Waiting 2 or 3 weeks can reveal new discounts when turnover slows. Sharp weekly listing drops signal a broader slide, and patience can save thousands. A steady approach avoids rush choices and aligns with market corrections, shaping long-term travel costs. This timing window protects your budget better. Those choices matter even more once the two sides of the market fully separate. The market splits in two. The final shape of the market becomes clearer with every new release. Two paths have formed, and the space between them grows wider each season. On one side, next-generation RV platforms continue gaining attention because they reduce daily operating costs, expand travel range, and adapt to changing campground conditions. On the other side, older rigs lose ground as electrical standards tighten and resale uncertainty expands. These two directions are unlikely to merge again. The market has shifted structure, and the older pricing model will not return. This matters because the long-term cost of ownership depends heavily on which platform aligns with the evolving travel environment. Timing shapes the financial outcome. Buying too early locks in higher costs, while buying too late risks limited inventory. Watching auctions, floor plan pressure, and factory allocations shows where prices move next. Platform choice affects service access, travel costs, and flexibility. The market is shifting again, and decisions made now determine readiness for upcoming trips. Those shifts carry real financial weight. If you've seen this shift happening, drop a comment. I want to hear what's going on in your area. Hit like if this helped, and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Big changes are coming fast, and you'll want to stay ahead.